So let's imagine for a moment, we're at this big, huge table, and all of these different diverse voices are sitting at this table. People from different ethnic backgrounds, cultures, identities, genders, socioeconomic classes, religions, different languages, all these diverse voices sitting together as one. And we all come together with our own assumptions, right? Because we often come to meeting new people with our assumptions. Yes? Okay. But then we have an opportunity to listen to one another and actually get to know and maybe challenge our assumptions in that moment. And then we get to sit down and listen, really listen to one another and create a project together that ripples off and will affect everyone, not just a select few, but everyone. And then we get to work together as one. What if all of the choices and decisions that were made were with all these different voices in life? That would be revolutionary. So I've got an interesting story. I was adopted, grew up in a loving all-white family in Morgantown, West Virginia. I was adopted 3 days after my first birthday by Dr. Jim and Judy Culberson, an all-white family. And my parents introduced me to my new sisters. My sister Laura, blonde hair, green eyes, she was 10. And my sister Lynn, dark hair, big glasses, she was 11. And my sisters wanted me to meet all the big girls in the neighborhood. So they yelled, come here, come here, come here, come here. You gotta see my new little baby sister, Sarah. You gotta see my new little baby sister, Sarah. So all the neighborhood girls came running and they sat in this big circle. And Catherine Morgan looked over at me and she looked at my sister and she said, now wait a second, is she black? Or does she just have a really good tan? Morgantown, West Virginia, 3% African-American. They hadn't seen very many kids of color in the neighborhood. And my sister said, this is my new little baby sister, Sarah. She's part West African and part white American. And they said, oh, okay. So I was getting to know the kids in the neighborhood, and I was also getting to know my extended family. Now, when I went to meet my grandmother, it's interesting. My grandmother had a lot of assumptions about my parents adopting me. And the call with my grandmother and my mom went a little bit like this. Mom, we adopted this new little girl, Sarah. She's really cute. She's got all this curly hair. I can't wait to bring her home this summer so you can meet her. Hello? Hello? And there was silence on the other end of the line. My grandmother said, Judy, I think adopting this black little girl into our family is only going to cause problems, and I don't want to talk to you about it. Click. And she hung up on my mom. Now, my mom, being the mighty 5'2", about a little over 100 pounds, mighty self, said, you know what? I'm tired of these assumptions my mom is making all the time. We're all gonna get in the car this summer to go to Litchfield, Illinois, and she's gonna have to deal with this. Mom doesn't mess around. So we all got in the car, Mom, Dad, Lynn, Laura, Benji the dog, and the poodle, so cute. We all get in the car and we drive to Litchfield, Illinois, to the farmhouse where my mom grew up. My grandmother comes out of the farmhouse. The door screeches open. She walks out, her arms crossed. She looks at me. She looks away. Then she looks back at me and says, can I hold her? And in that moment, my mom said I was breaking racial barriers within my own family. So I grew up and I was really clear. I didn't look like anybody in my family. And I really didn't look like a lot of people around me. And that was a journey that I was moving through and struggling with, but moving through. So I went on to college, went on to graduate school, and then I moved to Los Angeles where I started doing TV and film. And as I was in Los Angeles, I did this amazing program called Landmark Worldwide. And I was sitting in the class and they said, tell the person sitting next to you where you're holding back in life. And I realized in that moment, I was so angry at my birth father. Because my assumptions were right. I don't know how your assumptions are sometimes, but your assumptions are just right? My assumptions were right. Well, where were you? My birth mother kept me for 9 months. Then I was in foster care for 3 months. Then I was adopted. Where were you? And then as I sat in the course and started to pause, I started to think about, well, what was it like to be an African man in West Virginia in the 70s with a white woman having a child? Maybe I should give this guy a break. And the moment I let go of that anger, there was this new world that I got to step into, and I wanted to find my birth father. So I was sitting in the class, and I told my friend next to me, I really want to find my birth father, but I'm terrified of being rejected. He said, listen, I know a private investigator who won't charge you more than $100. Your birth father's going to love you. Oh, all the fear came back up. Okay, I'm gonna do this. He said, let me give you the information. So I contacted the private investigator. 3 hours, all the information I needed for $25, not thousands like I thought. And 4 days later, I got a phone call. And there was this woman on the other line. And she said, hello, Sarah. This is Evelyn. How are you? I thought, is this a Jamaican woman I met the other day? Because I couldn't get the dialect and I wasn't expecting to hear from anyone so soon. She said, I'm your auntie. We received your letter. And I started to bawl. I said, thank you so much for calling. I didn't know if I would ever hear from you. I didn't know if I would ever see you. She said, I was there when you were born. I used to take care of you when your birth mother would go to the grocery store. Hold on, let me get your uncle on the phone. Then my uncle gets on the phone. He goes, oh, Sarah. I was like, whoa. He says, we are so happy you've been found. Do you know who you are? I was like, I'm Sarah. He says, you are part of a royal family. Your great-grandfather was a Paramount Chief in Sierra Leone. Your grandfather was a Paramount Chief in Sierra Leone. Your grandfather was knighted Justice of the Peace by the Queen of England. You can be chief someday. You are a princess in this country. Princess, assumptions are back. Wait a second, what does this mean? Do I have to wear dresses all the time? Do I have to look perfect? Can I never say a bad word? What's happening? But I had to kind of just be with that. And they said, we're gonna contact your father in Sierra Leone. He's gonna be so happy to meet you. So they contact my father. It takes 2 weeks for them to get message from village to village to village because in 2004, very few people have access to cell phones in Sierra Leone. So during those 2 weeks, I start getting phone calls from all of these different African family members who live in the United States. Hello, Sarah. I'm your Uncle Ali, your father's favorite uncle. Hello, Sarah. I'm your Auntie Jenny. They used to call your father and me twins when we were little. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. All of these different African family members are welcoming me to the family when I had told myself they're not going to want to meet me. They're not going to want to talk to me, my assumptions again. And it was just love. And as that family, all those family calls died away, I heard my birth father's voice. He called. And the first thing he said to me is he said, please forgive me. I did not know how to find you after you'd been placed in adoption. Your name had changed. Everything had changed. He said, I was young. I went away to school. Your mother told me she was pregnant. She said, I will take care of her. And then she realized she couldn't. So we chose to give you to a family who could really take care of you during that time. I said, listen, I want to apologize to you because I've been making you wrong my entire life just to protect myself. And I'm not going to do that anymore. And I said, if there's a day that goes by that you feel guilty, please don't. You gave me the best family in the world. And now I'm going to get to meet you too, right? So how do we do this? And he said, it's challenging for me to get a visa to come to the United States. Could you come here? I said, I would love to. So I flew to Maryland to meet all the African family members. You know, the ones, hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah, right? And we planned a trip for 6 months later to go to Sierra Leone. We get off the airplane. I'm walking on the tarmac into the airport. I am so nervous. I am so scared. And I see my birth father's face. And he's so nervous and he's so scared. And I just give him a big hug. And I say, it is so good to finally meet you. And he said, it's so good to finally meet you too. And we took a ferry that night from Lunge to Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone. And it's named Freetown because it's where the Africans who were enslaved in the United States were brought back and named in Freetown. That's why it's called Freetown. So I got to stand in Freetown with my birth father. And the next morning, he gave me this beautiful green African dress, and he had the same matching green shirt. And I'm like, okay, we get to be twins. I'm so excited. And we get to go on the bumpy roads to Boompay, my family's village. And as we arrive, there's 100, 200, hundreds of people singing and dancing, and everyone parts, and all the women come forward, and they're singing, pa-da-tang, tang, tang, pa-da-tang, tang, tang. They're welcoming me, singing, we're preparing for Sarah in Mende, my family's language. I did not know how to be with all of that. And as the excitement started to die down, I saw what happened after an 11-year civil war in Sierra Leone from 1991 to 2002. I was there in 2004. And I kind of had to sit back with my thoughts, and I went, I thought this trip was for me to meet my birth family and know more about myself. Nah, this trip was about something so much bigger than all of that. Being a princess is about responsibility. Being a princess is about working with your community. That's what I learned. And I realized this has nothing to do with me. I got to go back and talk to my family. So I went back to the United States, talked to my parents. I said, we got to go to Sierra Leone. So I took my folks from West Virginia to meet my family in West Africa. We got the West going on. West side, West Virginia to West Africa. And we all came together with our assumptions about one another, right? They came to the table, but then we sat down and we all started to listen and get to know each other. That's so powerful when we bring our assumptions, but actually question them and get to know each other. And we all started to work together, and we created our nonprofit, Sierra Leone Rising, doing work in public health, education, technology, and female empowerment. Yes! Thank you. But that's because we had all these diverse voices at the table listening, because we sat down with the elders, with the people in the community, with the women, with the children, with the amputees who lost their arms and legs during the Civil War. We listened to everyone's voices, the diverse voices, all at the table. And a young girl said, we drop out of school because we don't have access to pads. So we, as a group, the diverse voices, started to talk about, well, what if we worked with Days for Girls? And the girls in Sierra Leone could actually make reusable, washable pads that they could keep using and stay in school. And then another voice said, you know what, we don't have enough clean drinking water. I mean, all this is after a war. We don't have enough clean drinking water. So we started digging wells, working with World Hope and partnering the voices together and digging all of these wells together. And then someone else said, we don't have access to bank accounts or loans. Okay, that's a problem. So how do we solve that? Well, what if we worked with cryptocurrency? Because people have cell phones, they could do that. Well, the problem is we don't really have Solidity developers. Who's going to develop on the blockchain to develop this app? Well, wait a second. Who should develop this? The people in Sierra Leone. They know who they are. They know what they need. So we partnered with a company called Harmony, a blockchain protocol company. How cool is that? The name is Harmony, right? And we all started working together in harmony. And they said, we can train 1,000 coders in Sierra Leone. So the coders, these Solidity developers, are from Sierra Leone, and they get to create banks for their own community. They get to bank the unbanked. That's revolutionary. So what I have learned also is the power of sharing with people and sitting down at the table. So I had the opportunity to sit down with Stephanie Elaine. She's an amazing producer, African-American woman here in Los Angeles. And she said, Sarah, we need to take your book that you wrote, A Princess Found, and we need to share the voices of different people in this book, because our narrative as African-Americans is we were all descendants from slaves, but we're actually descendants from Africans. And we don't have that story. We need to shift the narrative. And she said, let's do this. So we sat down with Disney. And we had diverse voices at the table. And we started to talk about learning about adoption, talking about forgiveness, talking about a culture that a lot of people don't know, this West African Sierra Leone culture. And they said, let's do this. They said, let's do a movie. So we're not gonna, yes, I'm excited. Thank you. And they said, let's have another little Black princess so girls get to see themselves represented, a princess of color. Yes. So we all started to work together. We definitely brought our assumptions to the table. We listened to one another, and we started to work together as one. And when we do that in life, that's when we really see that we are one village, one community. We are one tribe. Thank you. Thank you.